Hey, what's up, Jesse? Making it happen. Hey, real quick, this is cocktails and cake. I'm answering like the most frequently asked questions when it comes to real estate investing and real estate wholesaling. So this is session 2, and I'm just waiting on YouTube to kick in so that can go live, and then I'll get started answering the questions. So man, thank you so much for being here. Let's see, what do we got going on here? YouTube. Preparing to stream. All right, so I've been doing real estate investing for over a decade, and I've been doing these 15-minute free consultations for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. And there's starting to be a recurring theme of the questions that's being asked. So I decided for this month, September, which is my birthday month, to do a session that's called Cocktails and Cake. So got my cocktail here, and trust me, I had cake earlier today and I don't need any more cake. So I'm just going to start jumping in and answering questions that I get frequently asked. And then if you have a question, just go ahead and drop it in the chat and let me know, and I'll try and answer them as they come up. And yeah, we'll get started. So right now, again, I have Instagram here, and I'm waiting on YouTube live here so that can get started. For some reason, I have a connection time out when it comes to YouTube. It's funny, you know what? Things just never seem to work as far as technology when you want it to work, right? All right, let's try that again now. Hey, Brittany, how are you doing? Again, just kind of reiterate, we'll get started here in a few minutes. I'm just going to be answering some of the frequently asked questions I get in regards to real estate investing and real estate wholesaling. So just waiting on YouTube to get started. We'll go ahead and kick everything off. And then if you have any questions, just make sure you just drop them in the chat, and I'll answer that question for you. Because again, I've seen some wild and some crazy things. Good to see you too. I've seen some wild and some crazy things, and you know, a lot of people ask me questions, and it's not too much that I haven't seen or heard. And I'm not saying that to boast or to brag, but just to know that, hey, we've been in properties where people were deceased. We've been in properties where the police had to be called because of different situations. So there's quite a few things, and just kind of go over some of these frequently asked questions on how to handle them. Man, I don't know what is going on with YouTube right now, but it is not going live for some reason. So let's see. Let me try it one more time, and then we'll get started. So if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and start dropping them in the chat, and then that way I can answer them. Trust me, I have 106 frequently asked questions. I did 30 of them last week, right? I did, so every Thursday for the month, I jump on at 4 o'clock Mountain Standard, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, and just start answering questions. Again, if you want like a free purchase contract, you want to learn how to wholesale real estate, fix and flip, or buy rentals, you know, you can go to my website, Marcus E. Maloney. That's MALONEY.com. Download that free purchase contract, man, and you can get started on real estate investing. So one of the first questions that I always get asked is, I have a property that I'm looking at, and they're asking for $500 earnest money deposit. What do I do if I don't have the earnest money deposit? So you can try and negotiate that earnest money deposit down. That's one thing that you can do. You can try and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we do want to purchase the property. One of the things that we do is in low markets. One of the things that we do is in markets where the price point is very, very low. We tell them, hey, our company policy is Properties under $100,000, we put a $250 earnest money deposit, and properties above that number, we put a $500 earnest money deposit. And just remember that your earnest money deposit is refunded back to you if you don't close the transaction and if you cancel the transaction within your inspection period. So if your inspection period is 21 days and you cancel that contract on day 20, the title company or the attorney will return your earnest money deposit back to you. So that's one of the things that you can do in order to make sure you hedge your bet from losing your earnest money deposit. All right. I'm sorry, guys. I got to go on Zoom again here because for some reason it's not going live. And I have a host of people on Zoom that is trying to go live with me. So not only on Instagram, but on YouTube as well. So let me try and get that going. I apologize. Let's see, start video. All right, let's see if we can get it. See if we can get it going now, live on YouTube. FAQs answered. All right, let's try it again now. Sorry, you all. There is an increase in EMD amounts in Phoenix. Before they used to be, $1,000 to $5,000. Now, some sellers are more savvy and they want $10,000 earnest money deposit. And not only do they want the earnest money deposit at $10,000, they want that earnest money to be hard. So that means as soon as you put that money up front, they want that money to be hard, no inspection period. So if you don't perform, then they get that money. They are awarded that money. So you got to be careful. There's a lot of savvy sellers out there that know kind of the wholesale real estate transactions now, because it's not like it was before, something that was under the covers or anything like that. But now it's live, and a lot of real estate investors work with wholesalers, work with fix and flippers. So, the information is out there. So, Brittany, thank you. That's what I've been seeing just since I started. So I wanted to make sure. Yeah, you know what? Trust me, when I started wholesaling and fixing and flipping here in Phoenix about 10 years ago, we used to do a $500 earnest money deposit. We would do a $1,000 earnest money deposit with a 21-day inspection period, and that has completely changed and gone out the window. So now, in order to be in the game, one of the things that I always tell people is when you're getting started and you don't have that money, you probably need to connect with somebody like myself or some other investor that can put that money up, can vet the deal and say, yes, this is a good deal. We'll put up to the $10,000 earnest money deposit as long as we have first right of refusal to take the deal down. That means to buy the deal. So, you know what? As a newer investor getting into this space, that's probably what you want to do, is network as much as possible. And there's tons of places where you can network. One of the ones that I recommend here locally is ASREA, Arizona Real Estate Investors Association. And then if you're not local, most markets have a Real Estate Investors Association in their market. Or just go to meetup.com and look for real estate investor meetups, right? So that's that's a way. Another question is, who should I target starting off and where to get that list? So you can get lists from a myriad of places, right? There's listsource.com, there's PropWire, there's PropStream. You can go to my website, actually, marcusemaloney.com, and get a free 7-day trial of PropStream right now, so you can try it out and see how it works. But you can pull motivated seller lists. So if you're looking for properties in a zip code that have, a landlord that has recently, that's going through a pre-foreclosure or recently had an eviction, you can contact that seller by going through PropStream, downloading the information, and then getting their mailing address, putting it in batch skip trace, and skip trace that number, that individual, and then pick up the phone and call them. So that's one way that you can reach out to sellers. Sellers are not hard to find nowadays, right? When I got started, we had to go old school, had to talk to the title companies and pull lists in certain zip codes and then do direct mail. Now with cold calling and skip tracing, it's very, very easy in order to pull a list, okay? Brittany, code violations from City Hall are relatively cheap, but a great list. Yeah, that's another one. There's tons of motivated sellers out there. So let's just name a few, right? You said, code violations. You have pre-foreclosures. You have people that was going through a divorce. My first deal that I did was a divorcee. I was going through a divorce. You have properties that's in need of significant repair. Sellers that have IRS liens or tax liens. You have, what else? Tired landlords, sellers that just recently went through an eviction and evicted a tenant. And that's important because they may say, hey, I don't have the money to repair this place because the tenant tore it up, or I just don't want to be a landlord anymore. Me going through this experience was just hell, and now I need to sell the property. So those are, just a few, just to touch, on a few. So those are great people to target. One of the target lists that we always target is high equity owners that own their property for 5 years or more. So they own their property for over 5 years and they have at least 50% equity in their property, right? No motivation triggers or anything like that. We're just going wide. We're just looking for people that have high equity, and we're contacting them and saying, hey, you know what? They may be interested in selling, so let's reach out to them so we can get a broad list going of individuals who may be interested in selling. So keep that in mind, because there's definitely sellers who may not have any distress triggers but may be interested in selling. So another question that I get asked often, how's the earnest money deposit handled from the buyer? So if you have a buyer that's putting up that earnest money deposit, then they have to submit that earnest money deposit within 24 hours to the title company or the attorney who's holding the contract. The cash buyers may try and stall and delay and say, hey man, it's the end of the day. I can't get over there, but let's sign the contract. Or they say, I got my money is tied up. I'll get it over there tomorrow. One of the things that they may be trying to do is they may be trying to stall and shop your deal to other people. So you want to be aware of that, because that happens quite often, where people try and get your property under contract and then try and wholesale that deal out to somebody else. Okay? So what is the next step after you get a contract signed and have the buyer for the deal? So the next step of the process, right? So you have the seller signs your contract, and now you have a contract with the buyer. So there's two ways to have a contract with the buyer. One is the assignment agreement, where you're just assigning your interest in the original contract between you and the seller to the buyer. Or if your potential profit on the deal is large enough, you may want to grow a double contract, and then you have a separate contract, B to C, that's between you and your seller. All of those contracts go over to the title company, and those contracts are instructions for the title company on what to do. So once you submit those to the title company, and that buyer submits their earnest money, there's nothing else for you to do but to officiate the transaction. And what I mean by officiate the transaction is you have to be in contact with the buyer and the seller. So you want to say, okay, Mr. Seller, everything is going smoothly. The transaction is going great. We'll be closing on the date that we said we'll be closing on. And then with the seller side, you want to make sure the seller has everything prepared. The buyer, you want to make sure the buyer has everything prepared. Hey, we got your proof of funds, so we can review your proof of funds, everything like that. That way when it comes down to the closing table, there's no surprises. So that's what you need to do, okay? Next question. How can I show a buyer a property that is under contract with a realtor? Okay, so if you're trying to wholesale a property and it's with a realtor and you have the contract with the seller through the realtor, the way that you can show the property to your buyer is you just want to make sure you have access to that property, right? So one, you may be a licensee yourself, you may be a realtor yourself, and then you would just contact the listing agent and say, hey, you know what, I want to get back in that property because we want to start getting some scopes of work, getting some things prepped so we'll know how much it costs in order to do the rehab. Or number two, if you don't have your license, then you probably need to be working with another realtor, or if you have that relationship with that listing agent, just say, hey, you know what, I need to get over there and get into the property, take my contractors through so we can get a realistic scope of work. Now, you got to be careful because these realtors now, and I'm a realtor, so I'm not bashing on realtors at all, but realtors now, they understand the wholesale industry. So a lot of times realtors will want to see proof of funds up front. If you're looking at buying a property, they're going to want to see things like that so they know that they have the real buyer close. Today is cake, got my cocktail here, and I'm just answering questions. I do a 15-minute free consultation on my website, marcusemaloney.com, and what I've been noticing is there's a lot of the same questions being asked. So I decided this month just to answer these questions. I have 106 questions that I'm answering. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We got Instagram going on, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube live going. So just drop your questions right in the chat. All right, what are the crucial first steps for a new wholesaler? Crucial first steps, one is to know your market, right? Hey, G Waters, hey, Chip, hey, Samuel. You want to make sure that you know your market. The worst thing that you can do as a newer investor and a newer wholesaler is to go out there and start talking about things that you know nothing about, right? You want to know about your market. You want to know how many days on market properties are staying on the market, especially now, right? A year ago, 2 years ago, properties were flying off the shelf. Days on market was actually hours. Now, since the market has shifted, days on market has went up. So right now it's about 48 days on market for a property to sell. So as a newer investor, you need to know that. So when you're talking to your cash buyers, you find a property, you want to let them know, hey, days on market in this area is about 32 days on market. I have the ARV set at such and such and such. Price per square foot on a rehab here is about $33 per square foot. You want to be knowledgeable about that area, and you want to be knowledgeable about your deal. So that's the first thing that I always tell people. Be as knowledgeable as possible. And where can you get that knowledge, right? There's a lot of places. You could do YouTube University. You could go to your local RIA. I know in Arizona they have ASRIA, and they do a market update every month where you can go and listen to professionals in the market give the days on market, gives what's the trends happening in the market. And that's not just here in Arizona, but across the country there's RIAs, so you can definitely go there to get information about what's going on in your market, right? Okay, next question. I could build a bigger buyers list of cash buyers, but it's hard to find them with the amount of wholesalers now. Okay, let me clarify. You do not need a huge buyers list whatsoever, right? When I got started, I only had a handful of people. It was about 6 people, but I knew that those 6 people could perform because I ended up getting my list by going directly to like the courthouse steps, and I would see them putting the money up, buying these properties cash. So I knew that they were cash heavy and they were ready to take action. So where can you go to build your buyers list? One of the things that you can do is you can contact your local title company and say, all right, well, who in this market or in this zip code, let's just use a zip code 60617, who in this zip code Fidelity Title is buying the most transaction, who's the flippers in this transaction, and they'll show you all of the transactions that were bought with cash. You can ask for the last 30 days, the last 90 days, the last year, right? So you can go in and you can say, Fidelity National Title, I'm a newer wholesaler, I'm looking to get into real estate, and I'm building my buyers list, and I want a list. Can you provide me with a list of all of the fix and flippers that purchased the property cash in the last 90 days? And I will bring my transactions to you. They only make money by closing transactions. And if you can close transactions with them, they will give you all the marketing that you need. So they'll give you a list, not of the names, but they'll give you a list of all of the properties that were closed with cash in the last 90 days. You can go to Batch Skip Tracing. Again, that's batchskiptracing.com, and drop those addresses in there, get skip traced, and you'll get the owners. It may be the LLCs, but you'll get their telephone numbers, contact info, and you just pick up the phone. Hey, you know what? I see you're buying in 60617 or 85020. I see you're buying in this area. I'm a newer wholesaler. I'm going out looking for deals. What is it that you're looking for? Because I noticed that you fixed and flipped a lot of properties in this area. And they'll tell you because they are hungry for deals. They'll tell you, hey, I'm looking for minimum 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, no basements. My rehab amount is about $50,000. And now you can go out and you can look for that. Okay? I have my own contract from my attorney. Can I use a standard JV contract if I want to JV? If so, do you have one? Right? So I have my own contract from my attorney. So this individual had their attorney to generate a contract from them, but now they want to JV, and JV is joint partner. There's another wholesaler out there that may be a little bit more experienced than them. They may have the bigger buyers list, right? So they may have a huge buyers list, and you found a deal. You want to work with them so they can move your deal, and you guys may split the profits 50-50. Okay, so let me put it in context. I'm a new investor, or let's just say I'm a seasoned investor, and Jim is a new investor. He found this smoking hot deal, and he contacted me and said, hey, Marcus, man, look at this deal. I got this deal over here. Tell me if it's a deal. And I said, man, you know what, Jim, this is a smoking hot deal. I can move this deal for you. What Jim will want to do is he want to have a joint venture agreement between me and him. And what that's saying is that he authorizes me to sell this deal for him, but he gets a portion of the proceeds. That way, no one gets cut out of the deal. Jim get his 50% because he found a deal. I get my 50% because I found the buyer, right? So you always want to do everything above board. There's times where I haven't done joint ventures, but I know the people that I was working with, and I knew that I've done numerous transactions with them and they wouldn't stiff me. But I wouldn't have done that in the beginning, right? But over years, you start to understand who you can work with and who you cannot work with. All right, so just to reiterate, this is Cocktails and Cake. It's my birthday month, so I wanted to jump on and answer some frequently asked questions that I get. You can go to marcusemaloney.com, jump on a 15-minute free consultation with me. Or if you just got questions that you want answered, you don't know how to do a wholesale transaction, you don't know what to look for as a fix and flipper, you don't know what numbers to look for as a renter, portfolio holder, just let me know. Just drop it in the chat. Again, we have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter Live going, so I can answer those questions for you. But I do have about 106 questions here, but I know I'm only going to be able to get through about 30 of them tonight. So grab your cake, grab your cocktails. I had cake earlier, just drinking my cocktail here, and we'll move on to the next question. So next question is, what is the 70% rule? What is the 70% rule? So if you're out there and you're doing research on getting started as a fix and flipper or wholesaler or deal finder, what is the 70% rule, right? So 70% rule, which this was a hard, fast, true rule, some years ago, but it's not as true now because the market has shifted quite a bit, and you can't use this from market to market, right? But the 70% rule was you want your investor to gain 30% profit margin on the deal. So if the property is $100,000, that's the ARV after repair value is $100,000. And you want to multiply that by 0.7, that will bring you down to $70,000 because you're taking that 30% margin off the top. That'll bring you down to $70,000. Then what you want to do is you want to subtract your repair costs. Let's just say it's going to take $30,000 to repair. So now you went from $70,000 down to $40,000, and then you want to add in your wholesale fee. Let's just say it's $10,000. So now you went from 70 to 40, now to 30. So 30 is the MAO, which is the maximum allowable, which is the maximum allowable offer that you can make on that property to the seller in order for it to be a deal to an end buyer, right? But again, don't hold fast to a 70% rule. What I tell people now is when you're trying to calculate the ARV, and you're trying to get the number that you can wholesale this property for, the easiest way is to look for other properties in that market, in that area, right, that was purchased, that was a rehab property. So you can always do a scan and look at the properties that were sold for cash. You could do that through PropStream, or you can look for the properties that were fixed and flipped, do a history check on them. And what I mean by a history check is if you have MLS access, you can look at the history. They selling this property for $390,000, but 4 months ago, they bought the property for $270,000. So now that ARV may be right around, that buyer price for your cash buyer may be right around $270,000, right? It's hard to explain without a board to write it up, but what you want to do is you just want to research, again, what buyers are buying properties for, unfinished, unrehabbed in that area, okay? The next one, this is a great question. How do I overcome the fear of not being able to close a transaction? So, Marcus, I get a deal under contract and I don't know if I can find a buyer. Should I get that deal under contract, or what should I do? Should I buy? Should I find a buyer first, or should I find the deal first, right? That's the question that a lot of people have. It's the chicken or the egg question. My answer to that is You got to overcome this fear. And how do you overcome this fear? It's by jumping out there and taking the action, even if you make a mistake. Okay, even if you make a mistake. But the best way and what gives you the most confidence to get out there is to make sure you have somebody that is experienced with you. So what we do with our Deal Finders Club students is they go out, they do all of their marketing and everything like that. They're talking to sellers. And once they get to that point where they're stuck, they'll pick up the phone, they'll call either me or my partner, Mike, and we will walk them through the deal so they can get that first deal done. It gives you confidence because now you're not doing this all by yourself. You're not out there alone trying to figure out, how do I make a deal work? Do I have the earnest money? Am I pulling the right comps? There's tons of questions. Am I pulling the right comps? Do I have the repair value correct? Did I get the cost of the rehab correct? Do I have the right title company that will do a wholesale transaction? Do I have the right contracts and documents? So we provide all of that for our students. So if you're interested, again, go to azdfc.com. You can go to azdfc.com and join us and be a student. All right. Next question. Should I open an LLC and get a CPA before I make my first sale or after? All right. So for one, you don't need an LLC or a CPA if you haven't closed the deal yet. Best thing to do is close that deal. Once you get the profits, let's just say if you make $10,000 or $15,000 on your first deal. Even if you make, $5,000 on your first deal, then you can go and start you an LLC. You can start an LLC you can do it yourself for as little as, $120 something, or you can have someone else to do it, an attorney, or you can go to LegalZoom or something like that, where you could pay under $500. But having that LLC and having a CPA, if you haven't done a deal, is not important. All right? How do I locate vacant property owners for wholesaling? I kind of answered this question earlier. You can locate these properties by going to listsource.com and basically pay to play. So the minimum is, I think, like $100, $80, where you can download a list, or you can go to propstream.com / I think it's We Love Equity. You can get a 7-day free trial with PropStream. You can go there and try PropStream out. And what PropStream does, again, is you can put those property filters in there, those motivated trigger filters in there. You can put in, hey, vacant house. I'm looking for all vacant houses in 85142. I'm looking for all tired landlords in 85142. I'm looking for all properties that recently had evictions in 85142. And it'll spit that all out. So again, like we said earlier, you can do code violations, you can do divorces, you can do pre-foreclosure, tax liens, IRS liens, all kind of stuff to find motivated sellers. It's not as hard as it used to be before finding motivated sellers. All right. How do I negotiate cheap deals with motivated sellers? Deals with motivated sellers. You have to know the numbers in that market. You can't negotiate if you don't know what the numbers are. So again, that's like trying to go to a car dealership and you don't know what the average price of a Toyota Corolla is, but you're going in to buy a Toyota Corolla. So that dealer can tell you anything. And that's the same thing with negotiating deals on houses. You have to know what the ARV is in that market. So if the ARV is $300,000, you need to know that, because that's the top of the line price. Once and strategies that I always tell people is, it's never a negotiation, right? It's a conversation, deal done, but I'm not here to twist your arm, to get you to sell to me, and I'm not here to force me. I'm not here for you to force me to buy your property at a price that I don't want to pay. So a few things with negotiations is, find out what the seller needs in order to sell the property. You see, I said need, not want. So what's the number that they need to get in order for it to be a successful transaction with them? And then work that number backwards, right? A lot of times sellers are going to say, well, Betty Sue's house, my neighbor around the corner, sold for, $400,000. So I believe that I need to get $400,000 for my property. Okay, Mr. Seller, I understand. Betty Sue sold for $400,000. But you have to understand, I'm a real estate professional, and I looked at Betty Sue's property, and Betty Sue did X amount of updates. She has a pool, your property don't have a pool. She has a new roof, your property don't have a new roof. Should I pay for your property the same amount as Betty Sue's when Betty Sue's have so much more added value than yours? By having these conversations and educating the sellers, that's the best way for you to negotiate. It's not a negotiation. It's an education time for you to educate the seller on real estate. Because again, you are the real estate professional and they're not the real estate professional. And the reason why I say that is because most homeowners sell one, maybe two houses or two properties in their lifetime. But once you become an expert or a professional, you're going to be doing this monthly. So you can always say, well, Mr. Seller, we did 4 houses, last month we paid X amount of dollar for these houses. That's kind of where I'm at with your house. You know what? I understand if this number don't work for you. I definitely understand because we can't buy every house and you may not be willing to sell at that price, but that's kind of where we're at. So you just have to educate a crazy, stupid number, right? If the property is worth $500,000, we'll say, okay, well, Mr. Seller, you want me to give you a number? I give you $150,000 for the house. Oh no, that's freaking ridiculous. I'm not going to take $150,000. Okay, so now we know what you won't take. What's the number that you need in order to sell the property? So we already got a baseline of 150. We know they're not going to take 150. So now we just need to understand what will they accept. So that's number 2. So when negotiating with sellers, you got to educate them. You got to get that number out of them. And then you got to preach the benefits to them. You have to understand, let them know what are the benefits to them. We're helping you out of this dire situation. We're bringing cash to the table. We're closing quickly. We're paying all of the closing costs and fees with the transaction. You're not up any rehab. Sell this property on the open market with the realtor, and me being licensed, I understand that realtor is going to make. All right. Next question. Again, if you're just now joining us, this is Cocktails and Cake. I'm Marcus Maloney. Got my cocktail here. I had cake earlier, and I'm doing this because it's my birthday month, and I have been doing 15-minute free consultations, and I have some frequently asked questions from the people that I've talked to over the years. So I'm just kind of answering questions for those of you that are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you got a question that you want answered, just drop it in the chat, about real estate. So if it's real estate fixing and flipping, wholesaling, rental portfolios, things like that, I can definitely answer those questions for you. All right. Next question. How do I know when to double close versus using an assignment contract? Double closing versus assignments. You want to double close, and normally I tell people is anytime it's a buyer that you've never worked with before and the profits are over, $10,000, you probably want to double close, because sometimes buyers, cash buyers, investors, right, they're trying to get a good deal and they may try and negotiate you down on your wholesale fee, right? Or you may want to double close if you're making a significant amount of money, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on a transaction, and you don't want your seller to see, hey, what is this $50,000 line item to equity, realty, and investments. Oh, well, that's a wholesale fee. And then that may, tell your seller may say, well, I'm not doing that. They're making $50,000 off of my property. That's money that could be in my pocket, right? So you just want to make sure if you have a sizable wholesale fee, you don't want to do an assignment. An assignment, you could do it, $5,000, maybe $10,000 assignment fee. That can be okay. Or if it's a truly motivated seller, they don't care. They just want the money that you promised them, and your buyer is somebody that you worked with before, and your fee is going to be, $15,000, $18,000, $20,000. Then you could go ahead and do it. Our average wholesale fee is right around 18 grand. So yes, we get some higher, we get some lower, but we're right around that $18,000 mark for every deal. Okay. How can I do a deal or wholesale a house with taxes, mortgages, or liens? All right. So all of that will get taken care of at the title company or with the attorney during the settlement. So let's just say, for instance, your seller has $30,000, and I'm gonna give you an example. We just did one. Seller had about $20,000 in back property taxes, and we were buying the property for, let's just say hypothetically, $80,000, right? And the property had no mortgage on it. So the seller was set to net $70-something thousand. Well, out of that $70,000 that they would net, $20,000 will be paid directly to cover the lien or the taxes or the mortgage balance that was left over on the property. That way that the property, once we get it, is completely free and clear. So remember, any outstanding encumbrances on the property as far as taxes, liens, mortgages, or anything like that will be paid at closing through the settlement statement, through the funds that your end buyer will wire in. Now, if their liens or taxes is more than what the property is worth, then you'll have to try and negotiate those liens, taxes down with the lien holder in order for you to buy that property. Okay? Next question. How do our wholesale houses use in owner financing? Okay. This is a great question, especially in this market. There's tons of transactions where sellers need to sell their houses, but the house may be a little bit more than what it's worth. So you could do numerous transactions like subject to the existing financing. And what that is they bought the house 5 years ago with an interest rate of 2.75, right? You can say, Mr. Seller, we'll purchase the property at the amount that you want. No negotiation on prices. We're not going to negotiate you on price, but we need you to leave the existing financing in place in order for us to do this deal because we're paying at or above market value. So with that being said, you would set it up with a third-party servicer where you will pay the mortgage to that third party. That third party will pay the mortgagee, and then the owner will get a statement showing that the mortgage was paid. So some sellers will definitely do this. A lot of sellers would do it if you know how to communicate the benefits for them selling on subject to versus trying to sell on the open market and the property may not sell. Now, another creative financing strategy is seller financing. So if the property is completely free and clear, there's no mortgage or anything like that, and the seller wants to sell the property, you can exercise or let them know the benefits. Hey, Mr. Seller, we can give you $300,000, but once you receive that $300,000 and this is an investment property, you're going to be taxed at the highest tax rate on this $300,000. Now, there's a caveat to this. What we can do is you become the bank, let us pay you a mortgage note for that $300,000 every month. That way you're not getting hit with a huge capital gains tax, plus you're making passive income off the property. So you're still making a profit off the property without having to worry about tenants, toilets, termites. We'll take care of all of those responsibilities. So there's quite a few ways to do creative structures. My good friend Brandon Simmons, who we have with our Deal Finders Club, he teaches all of the creative finance stuff. So yes, there is a way to do seller finance transactions in this market currently today. So the next question, how do I talk with sellers? I'm scared to talk with sellers because I don't know what I don't know. So the main thing talking with sellers is, and one of our students, Michaela Moves Houses, you need to make sure you follow her on Instagram. She does live seller calls, and we have something that we call the call-a-thon, where it teaches you and trains you how to talk with sellers. But talking with sellers is just a conversation. There are some key things that you want to get out of the seller. You want to know why they need to sell. Okay, you want to know what condition the property is in. So basically, I'm calling, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm Marcus. I'm calling about the property at 123 Main Street. I see you may be interested in selling that property. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, great. Well, why are you interested in selling that property? What's your need for selling that property? Well, I need to sell the property because I'm moving, down south to Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, great. You're moving to Atlanta, Georgia. How long, what's your timeline on moving to Atlanta, Georgia? Are you trying to get it done, this month, next month, by the end of the year, in 2 years, kind of what's your timeline? So you're just trying to get your information gathering at this point. And then you can always let them know, okay, well, if it's okay with you, after I get the information about the property, I ask them to walk me through the property, be my eyes and ears, show me if I'm standing outside the property, what am I looking at? How's the roof? What's the age of the roof? How big is the lot? Coming through, is there a garage? Once I come through the door, what am I looking at? Am I in the kitchen? Am I in the living room? Yada, 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 so on and so forth, right? And then I just tell them, well, give me, a few minutes. Let me give you a call back. Let me run some numbers and let me see what I can offer you on the property, right? But you want to try and get a number out of them. So you want to say, okay, Mr. Seller, did you have any idea what you needed to get for this property in order for you to move to Atlanta, Georgia? Say, yes, you know what, I need to try and get $200,000. Okay, now $200,000. Is that the best you can do? If I can get things done for you in a quick time frame for you to get down to Atlanta, Georgia, is that the best you can do? And he may say, well, yeah, $200,000 is kind of the baseline. So then I would say, all right, $200,000 is your baseline if you was to sell it on the market, right? We didn't talk about selling it on the market, but I'm just saying that, okay, if you was to sell it on the market for $200,000, you'll have, possibly 6% commission that you need to pay out to the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So that's 6% coming out. Plus you may have another 3 to 4% when it comes to closing transactions. So that's immediately taking 10% off the top of the transaction. So now we're down to 180. You follow me, Mr. Seller? They say, yes, okay, I definitely understand. I wasn't expecting, it would be 20% or 10%, but yes, that's what it is. So then we'll go all the way down the line and get to that bottom number. And I would say, okay, Mr. Seller, based on this, tell me what's your number that you need to get for the property, knowing that I'm going to save you on those commission, taxes, fees, yada, yada, yada. They may give me a number, and I'll say, okay, let me give you a call back. I'll run my number, do some due diligence, and I'll call them back with a very, very odd number. I'll say, okay, Mr. Seller, based on everything that we can have, I can offer you $157,000, 286, some odd number. And the reason why we use an odd number, because psychologically, it lets the seller know that, man, they really thought about this number. Okay, so if they really did their due diligence and they thought about this number, that's probably the best that they can go. All right, they may accept, they may not accept. Okay, so just remember, talking with sellers is just a conversation. And once you do it more often, you'll become a pro at it. It'll just be like I'm talking to you right now on this live. All right. Next question. Everyone is saying it's a bad time to get into real estate. Is this the truth? I always tell people there's never a bad time to get into real estate. Even if you were buying in 2008, if you bought the properties correctly, that could have been a good time for you to get into real estate. Because once you get in, there's things that you learn and there's connections that you make to where you know real estate is always going to turn around. As bad as 2008 was, as bad as it may seem now, it's still going to turn around. And now you're getting that education in the down market. Guess what's going to happen when there's an up market? You're going to be well ahead of the curve. And also, if you're buying and holding in any market, just understand that you're going to have some key principles, some key things that's going to help you. You're going to have mortgage pay down, that your tenants are going to be paying down your mortgage. You're going to have the tax benefits of being a property owner. You're going to have possibly the equity and appreciation in that asset, and you can leverage that asset and borrow against that asset to do other things with. So I always say it's a great time to get into real estate. So with that being said, I'm wrapping up tonight. Again, this was Cocktails and Cake. I had my cocktail. I was doing that because this is my birthday month, and I do these 15-minute free consultations. You can go to marcusemaloney.com, download your free purchase contract, assignment agreement. You can listen to my podcast, the We Love Equity Real Estate Show. And I do this because I want people to truly understand what it takes to start out being a real estate investor. And I had, tonight we didn't get through as many questions as I wanted to. We only got through about 20. Last week we did about 30 questions, but I'll be on next Thursday, same time, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard, 6 p.m. Central Standard, and I'll be answering, the most frequently asked questions when it comes to being a real estate investor. So if you got questions, make sure you shoot me a message, drop it in the chat, and that way I can answer those questions for you. So for right now, I'm signing off. I'll see you next Thursday, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard, 6 p.m. Central.